In modern cities like the one I live in, everything moves fast. People rush. Life rushes. Everything moves so quickly that, sometimes, strange things happen, and no one even notices. But maybe it's because we live among crowds, that we're more vulnerable to things that don't belong to this world. Tonight, I want to tell you one of the scariest stories I've ever heard. And what chills me the most? It didn't happen in some remote forest or ancient village. It happened in a tiny rental room, inside an old apartment block you might have walked past every day without even noticing. It starts like 1,000 other stories in this city. A young man, just trying to survive. His name was Leon. 30 years old. He worked the night shift at a logistics company. The pay was decent, but not enough for a proper apartment, so he moved into a cheap rental room deep inside an aging building. No windows. No sunlight. And one thing he couldn't remove. A mirror. An old, grimy mirror glued right into the wall beside his bed. At first, Leon didn't think much of it. It's just a mirror, right? But little by little, strange things started to happen. A rotten fish smell at night. The feeling of someone breathing down his neck. A reflection that didn't quite match his movements. And one night, he woke up from sleep paralysis, only to find himself staring at himself. Except, in the reflection, someone was sitting on his chest. Grinning. Staring straight into the mirror. That was just the beginning. And what Leon discovered later, might make you never want a mirror near your bed again. So, are you ready? Turn off the lights. Put your headphones on. And listen closely. Because after this story, you may never look at a mirror the same way again. Leon was 30. He worked in logistics, handling cargo for an import-export company in the city. The job itself wasn't bad, but the hours were brutal. Night shifts from 7 p.m. until dawn. But commuting took almost an hour and a half each way, often late at night. He missed the last MRT more than once and ended up sleeping on cardboard at the warehouse. Eventually, he'd had enough. Leon started searching for a room closer to work. He didn't have many options. He found a cheap room in an old apartment block that had been subdivided into long-term rentals. Whenever someone opened a door or turned on the shared kettle, the whole hallway vibrated. The bed frame was old iron. The mattress, sunken and stained. A spring stuck out from the side. Leon brought his own sheets and blanket, trying not to think about how many strangers had slept here before him. And beside the bed, fixed directly into the wall, was a rectangular mirror. Plastic frame. Worn out. Permanently glued in place with old silicone. At first, Leon didn't care. Mirrors are everywhere. Maybe it even made the room feel a bit larger. But over time, he began to feel like this mirror wasn't like the others. No matter how many times he wiped it, dry cloth, glass cleaner, even alcohol, it stayed slightly foggy. Not superstitious. But the moment he moved in, his body began reacting. Restless sleep. Cold sweats at night. And always, this subtle, lingering thought. That he wasn't really alone in that room. Then the strange thing started. No ghosts walking through walls. No creepy whispers in the night. Just little things. Small, quick, almost forgettable things. Leon moved into the rental room on a late afternoon, after getting off work early. As he unpacked his things, everything seemed normal. If you could call normal a place with no windows, no sunlight, and the air of a storage closet. He only had a small suitcase, a few sets of clothes, his laptop, personal items, and a tiny bedside lamp he picked up at the supermarket. Leon hated fluorescent lighting. The cold white glow made everything feel like a hospital. He arranged his belongings neatly, turned on the soft yellow lamp, and whispered to himself. Just a few nights. I'll get used to it. But even that first night, he knew something wasn't right. Around 3 a.m., Leon woke up suddenly. No sound. No nightmare. Just an eerie, hard-to-describe sensation, like someone had just walked past his bed. Not footsteps. Not a voice. Just presence. A faint chill ran down his spine. The air felt thicker, heavier. Like fog, but not the kind humidity creates. Something else. He switched on the lamp. The soft glow spilled across the small room. Everything looked the same. His pillow was where it should be. The door, slightly ajar, just like before. But then came the smell. Faint at first. Then stronger by the second. Wet. Rotten. Fishy. Like something dead and soaked in seawater. He jumped up, opened the door, stepped into the hallway. Nothing. No smell. The other rooms were silent. No one cooking. No food. Just stillness. Back inside, he checked the trash bin, under the bed, even the bathroom corners. Everything was clean. But the smell lingered. Hanging in the air. Soaking into the walls. Leon washed his face, took a deep breath, and told himself, maybe it's the pipes. He crawled back under the blanket, trying to sleep. But in the 5 minutes that followed, it wasn't the smell or the silence that kept him awake. It was the feeling. The feeling that someone was watching him. Not from the door. He squinted into the glass. Saw himself. And the dark room behind him. But something about the eyes in the reflection didn't match. Not the expression. Not the movement. It was the timing. The image felt, one breath out of sync. As if the reflection was breathing after he did. He bolted upright. And in that exact second, the fishy smell vanished. The air returned to normal. But Leon's heart didn't. Because from that moment on, he knew. This room wasn't simple. And that mirror wasn't just a mirror. In the days that followed, Leon stuck to his usual schedule, night shifts, home around 4 a.m. The room never changed. Still cramped. Still dark. Still stale with dampness. Still the ceiling fan clacking overhead like a ticking clock. But the feeling changed. At first, it was just discomfort. That sense of lying in bed, trying to sleep, but your brain keeps listening. For a sound that never comes. A quiet, creeping tension. As if your body knows it's in danger. Even when your eyes don't see anything. Then the discomfort turned into unease. Every time Leon turned toward the wall, he felt a pull to turn back. To glance at the mirror. Like something, or someone, was standing behind him. Watching. As if he turned fast enough, he might catch a glimpse of an unfamiliar pair of eyes staring back at him. The unease followed him outside. One morning, after work, Leon took the train home. He sat by the window, eyelids heavy from exhaustion. But then, goosebumps. His skin crawled for no reason. He looked up. In the train window, he saw his own reflection. Are the worst. You know something might be in there. Waiting. Some nights, he lay on his side, facing the wall. The lamp still on. The fan still ticking. Everything silent. Because deep down, he knew. There was nothing behind him. But he also knew. He didn't want to be proven wrong. The only sound he heard was the pounding of his own heartbeat. And the soft ticking from the phone clock. The next morning, everything was normal again. No signs. No strange noise. No open doors. But Leon started taping a paper towel over the mirror before he left for work. He didn't want to see his reflection anymore. Didn't want to risk seeing someone else's. Because he was no longer sure that the image in that mirror was his. That night, Leon came home later than usual. A massive order had come in at work, and he had to stay behind to sort through the warehouse until nearly 5 a.m. By the time he reached his rental room, dawn had already begun to break outside. But in the corridor of the housing block, it was still pitch black, like always. He unlocked the door, flipped on the light, kicked off his shoes, and tossed his backpack onto the desk. His entire body felt like it was made of bricks. Heavy. Aching. He didn't bother showering. Didn't change. Just turned down the night lamp and collapsed onto the bed. But to a pressure. A crushing force pressing down on his chest. Leon opened his eyes. The room was still dim. The night lamp still glowed softly. The ceiling fan didn't move. But he couldn't move either. His arms, his legs, frozen. His lips parted to scream, but no sound came out. It was as if his entire body had been nailed to the mattress. Panic surged. As if the full weight of her presence was crushing the life out of him. Leon tried to scream. To thrash. But his body remained paralyzed. Then, she slowly began to raise her head. Bit by bit. No blood. No wound. Just an impossibly pale face, hollow eyes. And a twisted smile. Expressionless. Yet deliberate. Her eyes, through the glass, locked onto his. She knew. She knew he could see her. The mirror, no longer foggy, reflected everything with crystal clarity. But in reality, there was no one there. No weight. No shadow. Only the mirror. And that horrifying reflection. She tilted her head sideways. Still holding that unblinking stare. Like she was, studying him. Leon summoned every ounce of willpower into one hand. Just one finger. If he could move even one finger. Sweat rolled down his temple. His heart pounded like a drum about to burst. Then, a twitch. His fingertip moved. He slammed it onto the night lamp switch. Click. Light flooded the room. Gone. No woman. No reflection. Just the empty room. Silent. Still. But Leon's breath came in ragged gasps. His chest still throbbed, like something had stepped on it. He sat up, back drenched in cold sweat. Hands trembling. Eyes glued to the mirror. For the first time in his life, Leon understood what it felt like. To be crushed by something you can't see. Pale, emotionless. With eyes that pierced straight through him. He started fearing the dark. But worse than darkness was dim light. Not the bright glare of the ceiling lamp. But the kind of weak, murky light from a night lamp. Light that let you see just enough to imagine what might be lurking in the corners you couldn't fully see. He could only sleep now with the overhead light on. But it gave him headaches. Kept him restless. And whenever he dared turn it off, the smell returned. That same, awful stench of rotting fish. He tried everything, essential oils, deodorizer sachets, even a bundle of smoked herbs near the vent. But nothing worked. The smell wasn't in the air. It was in the walls. In the bed. In the mirror. Leon stopped looking into it. Before leaving for work, he taped a piece of paper over it. Then hung an old t-shirt for good measure. But every time he came home, the shirt had shifted. Even though the door was locked. Even though no one had entered. One night, as he was changing out of his work clothes, he heard it. A faint tap. Like someone had touched the mirror. From the other side. Just one tap. Soft, like a fingertip on glass. But in the silence of the room, it was deafening. Leon didn't go near it. He sat against the far corner of the room all night, watching the shirt-covered mirror, making sure it didn't fall. He stopped sleeping altogether. And when exhaustion forced him to doze off, he would jolt awake. Heart racing. Drenched in sweat. Blurry lines between dream and reality. By day, everything was quiet. But at night, shadows on the wall seemed to stretch just a little longer. Muffled groans leaked through the thin partition walls. Footsteps, faint, uncertain, echoed with no source. Together, they created a background noise that wouldn't go away. No one believed him. Because it all happened only when he was alone. But Leon knew. He was no longer alone in that room. It wasn't possession. It wasn't haunting. It was something far worse. He was being watched. Observed. Waited for. Leon wasn't the kind of person who got shaken easily. He used to believe that everything happening to him was just exhaustion. Has anyone else ever lived in this room before me? One morning, as he stepped outside to toss his trash, Leon ran into the man who managed the apartment block. The guy was a local, in his 60s. Thin frame, silver hair, but sharp eyes that had seen decades of tenants come and go. Leon gave a polite greeting, then got straight to the point. "Excuse me, the room I'm staying in, has it been rented out before?" The old man paused, looked at Leon briefly, then returned to sweeping the hallway. "Sure. It's not new. Been around for years." "No. Not long. Didn't even last 2 months." A short silence. "He left in the middle of the night. Didn't say anything. Just sent me a text. Never came back for his things. Left everything behind." Leon felt a cold shiver crawl up his spine. "Do you know why he left?" he asked, voice low. The old man frowned, then answered, with a sentence that made Leon freeze on the spot. He said, "Someone was lying on his chest every night." Leon swallowed. I'm sorry, what?" At first, he thought it was just sleep paralysis. But he told me, every night, when he finally opened his eyes, he'd see a woman squatting on his chest. Not just once. Every single night. The hallway's ventilation fan blew a chilly breeze across his back. But the chill he felt was coming from inside. "Why didn't you tell me this earlier?" Leon asked, almost angry. The old man looked him square in the eyes. "You're the only one who didn't ask. Everyone else asked why the rent was so cheap. You didn't ask, so I didn't tell." Leon said nothing more. He didn't turn on the light. He just stood there. In the dark. Staring at the mirror on the wall. The one now covered in fabric and tape. The silence in the room felt suffocating. And in that moment, Leon understood. He wasn't the first person to see her. And maybe he wouldn't be the last. That night, Leon couldn't sleep. Despite working nearly 10 hours straight. Despite being bone-tired. Despite his dry, burning eyes. His mind just wouldn't rest. The old man's words echoed in his head. The image of a man seeing himself lying in bed, while standing in the corner of the room, burned into his thoughts like a rusty nail. He glanced at the mirror. Still covered carefully by a coat, taped down at all corners. The night lamp was on. The room was quiet. Only the slow creak of the ceiling fan kept time like a metronome. Leon lay on his side, facing the wall, trying to slow his breathing, telling himself, "It's just stress. I'm fine. I'm still in control." But around 3 a.m., his eyes snapped open. Not from being crushed, like before, but from something even stranger. He was being lifted. His body was floating. No weight. No pressure. No sensation of the bed beneath him. Just suspended in air. He couldn't move. But this wasn't sleep paralysis. He wasn't trapped in his body. He was leaving it. Somehow, in a way he couldn't explain. Leon saw everything in the room. The ceiling. The walls. The door. And his own body. Still lying motionless on the bed. Eyes shut, arms limp. He was floating above it, hovering silently a few feet off the floor. And then he saw her. That woman. Standing by the door. Silent. Her long hair hung over her face. Her bare feet anchored her stiff frame like a statue. But Leon knew. She was looking right at him. Not at his body. Not at the bed. At him. His soul. Dangling mid-air. Then she raised her hand. Slowly. Long white fingers. Thin. Nails like tiny blades. She reached forward. As if inviting. Or pulling. And Leon felt it. A cold wind. Not real wind. But a force. An invisible tug. Inevitable. Unstoppable. His soul began drifting toward her. Inches at a time. He couldn't resist. He couldn't scream. No one could hear. No one could help. In that moment, Leon thought, "This is it. Not death." Couldn't even say it out loud. But he repeated what he could. Inside his head. Like a desperate chant for survival. The first line. The chill paused. The second line. His soul grew heavy again. The room was silent. But the coat covering the mirror was now on the floor. From that morning on, Leon knew it had gone too far. No more vague feelings. No more doubt. No more coincidences. With bloodshot eyes and a soul that might no longer be entirely his. All morning, he sat alone in the room. Staring at the mirror, now fully exposed after the fabric had fallen off. The mirror wasn't shattered. But right in the center. A small crack had appeared. A fine, almost invisible fracture. Branching out like a pale bolt of lightning. Leon was sure. The night before. That crack wasn't there. The mirror cracked. His soul had been pulled. The cloth had fallen. All at once. And that was the final straw. That afternoon, Leon went to a small, quiet temple tucked away in a residential area. No signs, no tourists. Just an old staircase and the faint scent of incense in the air. His mother used to bring him here as a child. Especially when he was sick for no explainable reason. He didn't share every detail. But told enough for the elderly monk to understand. The man just nodded, slowly. Then, from a cabinet behind him, he pulled out a red thread. A small yellow fabric pouch embroidered with sacred characters. And a small, dried twig. "Bodhi wood," he said. "You don't have to believe," the monk told him. "But you do need to chant." That night, Leon returned to the room. Red thread tied around his wrist. The amulet pouch hung over his bed. The Bodhi twig beside his pillow. No night light. No cloth over the mirror. No avoidance. He lay on his back, eyes wide open, staring directly into the mirror, as if declaring war. At exactly 3:17 a.m., Leon was still awake. And that's when the room began to change. The air turned cold. The darkness in the mirror began to swirl, like a thin smoke gathering behind the glass. The breeze from the ventilation shaft suddenly stopped. The room fell into a silence so still, it felt like death. And then, a soft crack. Quiet, but sharp. Another fracture in the mirror. In that instant, the fabric amulet fell from the wall. The red thread on Leon's wrist tightened suddenly, as if something unseen was pulling on it. The Bodhi twig next to him began to vibrate ever so slightly. Leon didn't move, but his lips were moving, reciting a chant the monk had taught him. He hadn't memorized it well. His words stumbled, but each line echoed clearly in his mind. Namo Amitabha Buddha. Namo Amitabha Buddha. Namo. By the 21st repetition, the mirror stopped moving. No new cracks. Nothing stepped out. Nothing stared back. Just Leon's own breath, heavy and ragged. And the body he still claimed was still his. He woke up the next morning utterly drained, his head spinning like he had run a marathon through hell. But his body hadn't moved all night. The red thread was still around his wrist, but now it had cut deep, leaving a red welt across his skin, as if someone had yanked it hard while he slept. The amulet lay on the floor. The Bodhi twig had snapped clean in two. No one else had entered. The door was locked. Nothing was stolen. But the mirror. Leon approached it slowly. His eyes scanned every inch of the glass. What had been one crack was now three. 3 fine fractures, spreading outward from the center, like the petals of a flower. But not a flower blooming. A flower dying. The cracks weren't from impact. Nothing had hit the mirror. It hadn't fallen. It cracked on its own. Right as he chanted. Right as something tried to come through. Leon reached out. His fingers touched the broken glass. The cracks were ice cold. Far colder than the rest of the surface. Like touching something, not of this world. He pulled his hand back instinctively. In that moment, he knew. This wasn't about feelings anymore. Or intuition. Or imagination. This was a sign. A rupture. A collision between two realms. One side, him. The living. The other side. Something unfinished. Something unresolved. A presence that hadn't moved on. Or worse. A will. Still clinging to this world. Leon couldn't bear to stay in the room that day. He took his laptop to a coffee shop and stayed there from morning to dusk, researching everything he could. Cracked mirror superstition. Ghosts in rental apartments. Astral projection while sleeping. Windowless room haunting. Most articles blamed sleep paralysis, stress, or neurological disorders. But on an old forum thread, he found a comment that froze his blood. If the mirror in your room cracks by itself, even though you didn't touch it, then stop sleeping there. Mirrors don't just reflect. They remember. They hold images. They keep emotion. And if they hold long enough, they open. That night, Leon didn't return. He rented a cheap hotel near the temple. And for the first time in many nights, he slept. No nightmares. No cold sweats. No smell of dead fish. No tapping on glass. The next morning, he went back to the apartment to pack his things. When he opened the door, everything looked normal. Still. Lifeless. Harmless. He didn't look at the mirror. He just picked up the cloth and began to pack. But just before leaving, he turned around for one last look. And in the mirror, between the 3 cracks, he saw eyes. Not his own. Faint. Blurred. But staring. Right at him. Leon didn't wait. He shut the door. And never came back. Leon packed up quickly. There wasn't much to bring, just a few shirts, his laptop, a notebook, some instant noodles, a toothbrush. He didn't rush because his bags were heavy. He rushed because he was afraid. From the moment he saw those eyes in the mirror, or believed he saw them, Leon never looked back again. Not once. No goodbyes. Not a word to the building manager. He just packed in silence. Hands trembling, spine cold. Carefully avoiding every corner of the room. Almost done. The small suitcase sat by the door. Jacket on. The amulet still around his neck, the broken Bodhi twig tucked into his shirt pocket. Just needed to slip on his shoes, open the door, and walk out. But then, Leon heard something. Not a voice. Not breathing. Not footsteps. A sound so soft. It almost wasn't there. A faint, scratching noise. Against the wooden floor. Leon froze. He leaned down, lower, peering under the bed. It was completely dark. Though the ceiling light was on, its glow couldn't penetrate that space. An impossible shadow. Bottomless. Cold. Empty. And then, a hand slid out. Slowly. Steadily. Not trembling. Not rushing. Just crawling forward, palm facing up. As if waiting for someone to hold it. It was a small hand. Thin. Pale. Nails long and colorless. No cuts. No blood. No scars. Just a hand. From something, no longer alive. Leon stood frozen. His breath caught in his throat. One hand gripped the suitcase. But his feet wouldn't move. Somewhere deep inside him, a part of him wanted to reach out. To know. To feel. What would happen if he took that hand? A heartbeat. A breath. An invitation. But then, Leon took a step back. He didn't scream. Didn't panic. And pulled it toward the door, eyes still locked on the space beneath the bed. The hand was still there. Still waiting. But Leon didn't give it the chance. He opened the door. Stepped outside. And just before he closed it, he looked back one final time. The hallway light spilled into the room. And under the bed, there was nothing. No hand. No shadow. We could call it sleep paralysis. We could give it a name. Something clinical. Something about stress. Insomnia. Psychological instability. But if it were only that, why did the mirror crack? Why was there a handprint on the floor? Why did everyone who stayed in that room dream the same dream? A woman. Staring. Never blinking. In many Southeast Asian cultures, especially Singapore, where Chinese, Malay, and Indian beliefs intertwine, wandering spirits aren't folklore. They're warnings. People say if someone dies alone, dies suddenly, or dies with something unfinished, their soul gets stuck. They become wandering spirits. But some spirits don't just wander. They want to trade places. In Chinese culture, the phenomenon is called sun. A soul replacement. Mentally and emotionally exhausted. No sunlight. Sleeping near mirrors. Because in many Eastern traditions, mirrors don't just reflect. They connect. They remember. They trap emotion. But she didn't haunt him. She didn't scream. She didn't break things. She simply repeated. Repeated her presence. Repeated her gaze. Repeated the opportunity. Waiting. For the moment Leon would finally let go. And when he began to drift out of his body, she tried to take his place. That's why the mirror cracked. That's why the hand reached out. Filled with loneliness. And silence. And if you've ever lived in a room like that, there's only one thing you need to remember. Never let a mirror face your bed. And if you ever wake up floating above your own body, don't let anyone touch you.